You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio, with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. This episode of ProdCast is sponsored by Inaugic. Inaugic is a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV delivering best-in-class Dynamics 365 customer engagement solutions, as well as cost-effective and high-quality offshore Dynamics CRM programming services. Inaugic's innovative solutions portfolio includes Maplytics, a premier map visualization, routing, and geoanalytics app for Dynamics 365 customer engagement, and NowLink that offers a seamless integration between QuickBooks and Dynamics 365 customer engagement, and other productivity apps like User Adoption Monitor, Click to Clone, and Click to Export. We thank Inaugic for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio. Welcome to the final ProdCast for the year, Matthew.
I can't believe the year is already coming to a close, but I'm excited.
Looking back, just a ton has happened this year. And I'm not talking about big world events. There's been plenty of that. But just personally, there's just, from our podcast growing and introducing an app and having our 1,000th tip of the day, it's just been a lot of stuff going on here. Add to that family and work, and it just seems like this year has been 3 years to me.
I hear you. It's been a very busy and fun one for me as well. I mean, obviously, the podcast ventures here, and I had a change in role. So yeah, been a good one. For me, I don't know about you, but when I start thinking through, what do I do at the end of the year as I'm kind of closing things down? How do I think about how I take stock of what it is that I've been doing as I start getting ready for the next year. Do you have any kind of process around that? Is that something you do?
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I try and do at the end of the year is I try and tie up any loose ends. And what I mean by loose ends is unfinished things sitting out there that are taking up my mental focus or taking up mental cycles that I need to free up for what's coming. So that can be things like half completed home improvement projects or books that you started. And when about 2 months ago, I realized I had about 5 books that I had started and read the first couple chapters and hadn't finished, and all those things were sitting kind of in my brain, nagging me that, hey, you should work on me. And then even I find personal stuff like that can take my focus away from work stuff I need to do, or work projects that are half done can take a focus away from things. So I've been putting a lot of focus on forcing myself to finish books, some of which were longer. And in retrospect, I wonder why I wanted to read them in the first place. But I find finishing is kind of like a muscle you can exercise. And if you get lazy about finishing things in your personal life, it kind of spills over in general undisciplined manner. So I force myself regularly to finish the books I'm reading before I let myself start something new. I even do it with television series. I have a series that I've been going through, and I've seen new things come out on Netflix or what have you, and I've wanted to watch them, and I'm making myself keep at this to finish the task, because otherwise I'll always have open cycles wondering what happened on this other series.
So there must be some things that you're letting go and not actually finishing. There have to be some terrible books where you're starting it and just intentionally making that decision to not carry forward to that Netflix show. So tell me there's some of that too.
Yeah, there are, but if in the case of a book, if I did that, I would have to get rid of the book. Maybe give it to my friend and tell him it's the best book ever, and let it sit on his shelf. I don't want it sitting around me, nagging me. You have to burn the boats.
Fair enough. So, I mean, I go through something similar where when I'm thinking up toward the next year, I want to bring closure to the things from the current year / previous year that don't matter as much to me anymore. And in some cases, that's finishing those books or kind of watching the last couple of episodes of a series or what have you. But for me, some of it is definitely the very intentional letting it go of, this is something that I thought was going to be important. Turns out I got, halfway into it and realized there was something different. There's a better way for me to be using my time. And I use this year-end moment to be able to make peace with some of that. Now I don't physically like load up a box of books and bring them to the Goodwill because I haven't finished them, but it is that place for me to go through. I keep a Goodreads account, and I have, what's on my shelf, what am I currently reading, and that kind of thing. And I will purge some of that so I don't have it in the back of my mind. Maybe I should do that on my Netflix account and clear out some of my list.
Right.
Because it seems like.
Well, I've done that. I've done that with recently in the last week with my online subscriptions, because they pile up and they're $5 here, $10 there. In micro, they're not expensive, but in macro, they can add up. And just evaluating how much value am I really getting? Am I getting $9.95 worth of value from this service? Keeping in mind, I can always resubscribe if there's a burning reason for me to do. I canceled my next Netflix subscription last week, actually, because what I'm finding is I don't have a lot of time for television. And when I do, it's usually not something that's on Netflix. I mean, there's good stuff on Netflix, but it'll be something that I can find on Amazon Prime or Hulu, and I pay for Hulu with my Microsoft Rewards points, so that doesn't really cost me anything. And, just thinking, if I haven't watched Stranger Things 2, and if I decide I have time and want to, I can always subscribe again if I need to. And that's the thing, same thing with music services. I have the Amazon Music service, and for a while I had the Apple Music service and all these different music services. And sometimes I've had more than one at a time, and just realizing, I'll pick the one that I get the most use of, which for me lately has been Google Play, because I like having a service that combines my personal library with the streaming, because there's still some things that aren't available for streaming. And then kiss the other ones goodbye, and I might switch to Spotify in 6 months. You never know.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Spotify guy myself, but on that concept, I definitely hear you. There are those subscriptions that kind of overlap with each other. I think if I tried to get rid of Netflix in my home, there would be a mutiny. Because it's definitely, especially overall value. I mean, the question of $9.99 a month, now $10.99 a month. The value of that, we'd probably pay 15 or 20, but Netflix, please don't, I know you're listening to this, please don't raise my rates.
Yeah, but then Disney will start their own service, and they own everything now, and they'll pull it all off, and then you won't have anything.
Yeah.
So let's revisit, since this is the final ProdCast of 2017, let's look back at some of the things we talked about, see if our recommendations have held out. So we talked several episodes about task management, with Wunderlist being acquired and then announced it was going to die. We were kind of in a scramble. Oh no, we got to find something else. I think earlier we're looking at Asana. Have you stuck with that, or have you found something better?
So I was all in on finding something to replace the soon-to-be gone Wunderlist. Though there's not an official end date, I'm not comfortable with using a service that is known that it's going to sunset. So, I thought Asana was going to be it. I do still have it. I have that as the core of my projects and tasks, but I haven't been the most satisfied with it. I've done my best, but it just, there are enough times where it doesn't quite give me the usage or control that I'm looking for. I mean, even trying some of the premium features that are available through it, it hasn't been the one for me. So actually, I've been, for the last 2.5 months or so, I've been dipping my toe into the water of a newer service called ZenKit. Are you familiar with ZenKit?
Does it put you in Zen?
I mean, that's the idea. But no, I mean, so ZenKit is supposed to bring you productivity zen, is what their slogan is for it. And what I've liked about it is that it gives a lot of control over how you connect different items together with each other, and then gives a number of different visualizations that you can use on the same grouping of items. So, very common are, just a basic task list, that type of view of things, or maybe a calendar view. But with ZenKit, they have options around like a mind map style view. And what's interesting is you can add in things on that mind map and lay things out and just kind of give it a feel that's going to be different from your list view of those exact same items. Now, ZenKit is a newer service. I'll probably say for a future episode of ProdCast, I can talk a little bit more about specific features and that kind of thing. But the beautiful part about it is you're not stuck with one and only one visualization of some of the items that are out there, which was one of my main points of pushback for Asana. It is, as I mentioned, a newer service that's out there. I'm actually in their Android preview program. When I first started using the service, the mobile app was only a wrapper for the regular web page, which looked not great. And while it's still a closed beta, so I'm not at liberty to talk about the detail of it, I'm very excited about, things that I'm seeing and kind of where that's going. So, hoping for ZenKit to be that one in the future.
So how does the mind mapping fit in with the task management?
So it is, what it does is it takes all of the same items that you have that were, say, in that list. But it adds in, it's like if you think of each of those items as a database, row or database record, there's an additional field that looks at the parent-child relationships in a mind map. So as you go from one item to another, whether that's peer-to-peer or whether that's parent-to-child, it stores that information separately. So you can have the hierarchy in, say, a list view of how you'd want to see things. It takes the information about the parent or child or peer-to-peer relationship of the items in the mind map view, and it stores that separately from how you look at them in the list view. So you can have your sorting and ordering and look at things in different ways, even though it's the same set of data. It's very, very flexible. And if they extend that concept to the board concept, for those who use Trello, you have your board and you have the different categories that it goes through. But you can create custom fields in ZenKit, and any of those custom fields that you have, if they're an option set / pick list, call it what you want, you can use each of those to be able to look at something from a board view perspective. And there's even a way to be able to do multi-value for some of that. So you can have this really fine-grained control over how you're seeing those items that you have out in your list. And you can look at it both in aggregate across kind of all your projects, as well as just for a specific board or project. So I've been really impressed so far.
Yeah, I think that underscores kind of like the thin line between project management and task management. And I think that's good, and those tools, kind of like Asana as well, could be good for business solution. And they're actually used for pseudo CRM kind of project management. But I think for me, I still like the simple task list. And so I'm still using Wunderlist. It hasn't fallen apart on me yet, and it's not dead yet. I did kind of frown on Microsoft To Do when I first tried it, and it was very limited. But I recently tried it again, and I was able to try it connected to my Exchange account, and it still is a preview. That's why it's not turned on in Office 365 by default. Mm-hmm. But it will be it'll be the default task engine for Office 365 once it's there. And when I logged in with Office 365, there it made a lot more sense, because there I suddenly saw my Exchange tasks show up, and I got that wired up with Wunderlist through Flow right now. But it showed the task, which also means interesting that if you're using OneNote and you're tagging and setting a to-do, that creates a task in Exchange, which can show up on your to-do list.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it has promise. I'm thinking I'm still sticking with Wunderlist until they pry it out of my cold dead hands, until they pull the plug and officially release to-do. But if you put them side by side, quick check, the things I'm seeing missing right now is the list of lists. I can't right now in to-do drag a list on top of another list to make a folder. There might be a way to make a folder that I haven't found yet. And I don't see on to-dos, I don't see the ability to attach files. Those are the two things that, and I don't really use the file thing. I have used it when I make myself a to-do sometimes to call the doctor's office about a question about a bill, and I'll put a PDF of the bill in the to-do. But I've probably done that 3 times. So, but the basic look and feel is very much like Wunderlist. And if they close 1 or 2 more gaps and release it so people can use it. The other thing I think some people are going to not like is I don't see the cross-functional being able to have people who, if you can log into either your personal account, your personal Microsoft account, or your business Microsoft account. And if I log in with my business Microsoft account, I don't see a way to assign tasks to people who don't work for my company. So I can't use it to assign tasks to my wife and kids. But I don't do that. So yeah. So I'm curious as you say that. So do they not have like support for multiple accounts in the app? Because I think of like Office, where I can have my OneDrive for Business and OneDrive account that's not OneDrive for Business, both in the same kind of aggregated account list that I have, even though it's the same Office apps that I have on my phone or tablet. Right now, it's log in, log out.
Wonder if that's just because it's preview.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's something I hope they have in there when it actually goes live, because that'd go a long way to that problem you're talking about there, where that's just not practical, and you have to manage multiple apps if you're doing it that way, or a different way to do the family side or the personal side versus work.
Right. They've even added the satisfying ding sound when you check the box.
Beautiful. So your productivity tip to close off 2017 is make off checklists and check them off to hear that satisfying ding sound and feel better.
That does tie in with what I was saying about the magic of finishing things. You get a lot more satisfaction hearing that ding than starting something, not having the ding.
Perfect.
So what about books or blogs or podcasts or productivity guides that you've read? What's the best thing you've read from the past year?
Well, so you tipped me off that you were going to ask this question, and it feels like I spent a lot of time reading books that were not productivity related. So I'm not going to answer there. I definitely did kind of get back in on the podcasting side of things. I've really enjoyed the Back to Work podcast. I don't know if you've listened to that one. It's the Merlin Mann podcast that, while not specifically related to productivity, definitely has some productivity and, tech in there, as well as, a handful of other fun things. They have an awful lot of ads in there, but I mean, that's just because it's well known in general. Yeah, how about you?
One of the books that I had on my reading list and hadn't finished was Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Okay.
And so this is one that I've had, but I hadn't read it. It's one of those things, you're at the airport on a layover and you buy it because you're bored and it looks good, and then you set it aside and never read it. But I actually read it and I found it was helpful. I don't know, did you ever read the book a few years ago called The Shallows, about how social media and technology is changing the way we think and not for the better?
I did not.
And
Nope.
Yeah, that's a good kind of scary book, but this is kind of like the book I would read after you read that, which is how to avoid spending time in shallow work and focus on the deep work. And so it's extremely practical. It's kind of one of those things that he doesn't dictate how you have to work, but things like to avoid wasting a whole day just organizing your email and that type of thing is set yourself certain times during the day. And that's definitely something that I've tried to do this year with things like email, is instead of keeping the inbox open and going through it as soon as I see a message come in, is more focused times. And, even if you do that, every once an hour for 5 minutes, it's better than spending the whole day cleaning through your email. And, taking meaningful breaks from social media, whether you get off it totally or same thing, restrict it to certain times a day. Again, I thought was helpful. Some of the stuff I thought didn't really apply to what I do, because he's like, don't reply to people's emails, and talks about famous authors who make themselves intentionally hard to find. Matthew, if you and I make ourselves hard to find, we'll soon find ourselves out of a job.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the point still remains that you kind of train people on how to interact with you. And if you train people that, hey, if you email me, I'm going to get back to you, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, you're positioning yourself for failure.
Yeah, well, and that's one of those things. I mean, it goes back to a topic that we covered earlier this year of kind of that living in the future type of concept, where you can, even if you are prone to read that email that comes in at 10 at night, you can set it to your response to actually go out, say, the next day, so people don't get trained on that idea of, if I reach out to Matthew at 10 at night, he's going to immediately respond.
Oh, and I'm definitely still using Boomerang to delay send my email, and they just released the mobile app for iOS that's free. So basically now I think it's free. Anyway, if it wasn't free, it was cheap. But anyway, now I can delay, respond, and send emails to people from my phone and not have to get in front of my computer. Yeah. So that's been a good thing.
Yeah. So I've tried Boomerang. I've had some issues with it connecting to my account, and I just haven't invested the time to figure out why that's not working right. It did work for a few weeks, and I liked it, but ran into a bit of a roadblock there. And maybe with some time over the holidays, I'll get that fixed and working again.
Now, one thing somebody told me here in my recommendation, they went and tried it, but they downloaded the Boomerang for Outlook. I don't recommend that one. That one you have to keep Outlook open. What I'm talking about is either the mobile app or if you go in Office, if you're on Office 365, and go to the store inside of there and do that. And I did have to reconnect it once or twice, but it's been pretty solid for me.
Yeah, mine's the one through the store. So, I mean, I would have thought that would work a little bit more smoothly, but then again, I've had a couple of issues. My analytics has been giving me a little bit of grief in app, but if I go to the Delve website itself, I can see my analytics just fine. So I think there's something funky with my profile in Outlook right now, and been too much in the weeds to go through and fix that.
So I've been sending congratulatory emails to my analytics top collaborators on Monday, like, hey, good job, you were my top collaborator. And one of them I sent, and this is somebody but I sent him an email because he's a project manager on several of my projects, and so for several weeks he was top collaborator. And I sent him an email, and I actually sent this after hours, saying with the subject, "You've been replaced." And then I said, "You're no longer my top collaborator." And he saw the subject and thought he was being fired.
No way. That's awful, but awful funny too.
This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. You can follow Matthew at his blog, connectingthedata.com, or on Twitter at MC Anderson. You can follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio Network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that offers fine podcasts. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.